podcast. Managing Editor Brenden Slaughter, joined, as always, by recruiting analyst Jared Halus for this rivalry week edition of the Edge podcast. Oregon State and Oregon set to square off Friday, 4 o'clock on ESPN. A huge game. We obviously got the holiday coming up, so Jared and I are gearing you guys up and getting you ready for the game. We'll also touch on a few other things as well. But Jared, how have you been, man? Good to see you and getting ready for the holidays.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm excited to, here in Georgia, we're still thankfully able to be with family. I've got some coming over later tonight. So excited for that. Excited to see all my people, and just happy that we're still able to have some football on Thanksgiving. It's gonna be pretty exciting. Obviously, my Steelers are gonna be playing. A little bit worried about that game on Thursday, but that's a song for another time. But yeah, I mean, I'm just excited, to continue. We're moving forward to, like we were talking about, signing day, and there's some good things happening. Just hope that everybody's continuing to stay safe and healthy.
Certainly, and I must say, it's definitely a little different over here. Given the family a lot of virtual love over here in the Oregon area as far as Thanksgiving goes. And then you mentioned the Steelers. So Jake Luton had himself a pretty rough game on Sunday. Threw for 4 picks and, kind of became a Twitter meme throughout the day. Jared, your Steeler defense has been dominant this year, but that's kind of where I'm like, that was a tough road to hoe for Jake, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no rookie quarterback that's going to go in there and light up that defense. I mean, Burrow the week before, number 1 overall draft pick, had 1 touchdown. The Bengals scored 10 points. So, it is what it is. You're gonna have those lumps as a rookie, and it's important for him to get those out of the way. And he's already shown, heck, his first completion was a dang touchdown, and a long one at that. So he's already shown signs of being a promising guy for them. So hopefully he's able to flush that one and show the people what he's really capable of next week.
Certainly, and I think that's one of been with football starting for the Pac-12 so much later this year. I think one of the more kind of cool things for me and maybe for you as well, Jared, has been seeing the guys that I've covered really closely the last 2, 3, 4 years make it to the NFL and have that success. I think of guys like Ryan Nall, guys like Artavis Pierce, who were able to get in this not this weekend but the previous week. For Chicago. I think about, Jake Luton and, the fact that he was able to make, I believe it was 3 or 4. I believe it was actually drawing a blank here.
This was his
Steelers was his 3rd, I believe. Yeah. So potentially a 4th. I know Gardner Minshew is potentially going to be back this week. So no decision there, but Brandon Cooks as well, a few others, Steven Nelson on your Steeler defense for sure. I think that's been a really cool thing this year, and I think we've talked about it in previous podcasts. That's just another recruiting chip that Jonathan Smith and his staff can use, and I also think keep an eye out, Beaver fans, as well. I put it in the story today. Isaiah Hodgins eligible to be activated off of IR any time in the next couple weeks as well. So there's another Beaver, recently from the Smith era that could be making his debut as well. So again, as far as it relates to, Oregon State, and we think back to the journey, right, that Jake Luton went through and, watching him last year and, for me, just covering guys, I don't think I'd ever seen more heartbreak on a guy's face than when he wasn't physically able to go against Oregon in that game last year. And Tristan Gebbia, got the start. Jake Luton is a tough dude. And seeing him hold back tears, that was tough, right? And many, you didn't know. You don't know what the future holds. And Oregon State obviously didn't go to a bowl game. And to see him land with Jacksonville and get an opportunity, you live for those moments, especially even being media and being able to, see those guys come all the way through in that journey. It's a real cool deal. But that's kind of a great transition to getting into the Civil War, rather Oregon State, Oregon, as I think I'm now the 5th or 6th media member to catch myself this week, as I've noticed several others as well. It's still going to work it all out, right? And we even hear that next year they'll have a name for the game. But as we're in this kind of odd year, right? It almost seems, perfect that it doesn't have a name this year. But Tristan Gebbia getting the start last year in Eugene, right? Last minute, no one knew Jake couldn't go until like 15 minutes before kickoff. And that was Tristan Gebbia's first start. Beavers end up going on to lose that game in a real close way.
Mm-hmm.
And then that springboarded Gebbia to be the starting quarterback this year. Jared, am I crazy for saying how he performed against Oregon that game was better than any time he's performed this year?
No, I think that's pretty fair. Last week was a better week for him. And it's I know you're a guy that has all the faith in the world in him, and I see where you're coming from for sure. There's a lot of people calling for changes and things like that, just at least opportunities for these other guys.
Right.
At the same time, he's shown some potential, and it is a very strange season. Limited preparation for sure, which could have definitely played a role into kind of a slower start. So I'm not, although I've said I'm open for opportunities for other guys, I'm definitely not ready to write off Gebbia just yet. Potential, like you said, that game against Oregon showed that he's capable of battling it out against a team like that. So if he's able to use the experience that he's gotten so far this season and continue improving every week, and you never know, this week could be the week that he gets revenge against him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Jared, one thing that I've been talking just with, I'm talking to my brother, talking with some people just, around that follow Oregon State football almost as close that I just kind of to get some back and forth just kind of from what people are feeling. And here's the thing, I think right now Tristan Gebbia has to shed that game manager label because that's exactly where he is right now, in my opinion. And when you look at right, when you the struggles that he's having, right? You look at some of the right, having struggles as a quarterback, your first year starting, that's not unheard of, right? The thing that kind of comes back to me is that by eligibility goes, Gebbia could be a true senior. And you should not be having some of the, I don't want to say like bonehead mistakes, but just questionable mistakes when you're that experienced and been in a offense as at least in a Power 5 quarterback room that long, right? And I'm like, okay, if just Gebbia was a redshirt freshman, right, making his first debut, he's a Jaden Delora, even a true freshman, I would expect some of these mistakes. But I think back to like the interception he threw against Cal this last weekend, where you look at the replay, there were 4 white jerseys. There was 1 black jersey. There was no chance of that ball being completed. And he threw it. And it's just, say what you want about, his cool statistics. I know Tristan Gebbia got to look a lot like Taysom Hill this last weekend. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. Maybe Sean Payton will come calling in a couple years. Got to love those Swiss Army knives. But as far as like the execution goes, I've been saying all week, my feeling is Gebbia did just enough not to lose that game, in my opinion. And I think, I've stood staunchly in his corner. I think the kid has talent. But after game 1, game 2, I'm like, okay, that's not a sample size. 3 games is a sample size. That's half a season this year, almost, depending on what happens with that weird last week. So, yeah, I think this game is huge for him because I think he took a small step forward in this one. Sure. But Washington was obviously an awful performance. And then Washington State, he was able to salvage it in the second half. But, Oregon State couldn't get back over the hump. So I don't put all of the struggles on him. But in terms of just like, the Beavers have been talking for weeks about improving the passing game, and they'll talk about it this week as well. And I think that just kind of all starts and finishes with Gebbia. I think he's really, really hard on himself. I think he holds himself to an extremely high standard, and I think that maybe lets him press a little bit at times. So, I think we need to see the Tristan that we saw in that Oregon game last year, where it's just like, okay, go, and just, take the guards off and just see what happens. And, if I think that will come depending on when, hard to say, but there's just been something off, and we've talked about it between games and whatnot, something off about his mechanics and timing, and maybe that's, not having, necessarily go-to number one receiver. Could be any number of things, but I tell you what, looking back, Isaiah Hodgins might have made the right call to get out of here.
Well, just getting back to Tristan a little bit, honestly, I think what you were touching on has got a little bit to do with it. He holds himself to a high standard, and that he probably puts a lot of pressure on himself.
He does, certainly.
Really high. So when you get in those situations, late in the game where you got a close ball game that your team should win, you kind of want to be the guy, especially when he's. I'm sure he's heard a little bit of the noise. You want to make the play. You want to be the one that puts the opposing team away, and in his case, really establish himself as the guy that can win games, not just do enough to not lose them. So
right.
I think the pressure that he might be putting on himself might be a little much. And in a game like he had last year against Oregon, such limited notice, you don't really have time to feel that.
Right.
You just get kind of thrown in, and a lot of times like that, you can just go numb. And when you have talent, like we've said he does, that can take over in those instances. But when you're see things that we've seen this season happen. So it's just going to be a matter of him, getting some confidence back. And I think the coaches are doing a good job. If they do decide to continue rolling him out, then they're doing a good job keeping that confidence in him, letting them know that, hey, you're our guy, and we have all the belief in you as possible. That's a really good thing. And, you never know. Like you said, 3 games is when you can really kind of start making a bit of a judgment. And so this week's definitely, like you said, a point where we're going to want to see some more. I think the Oregon State fans do as well.
Certainly, and that'll kind of transition into kind of that first topic that we want to get into, and that's kind of that Oregon State offense versus the Oregon defense. Jonathan Smith said earlier this week that they expect Oregon is going to be, doing everything they can. And I don't blame Oregon. If I'm Mario Cristobal, I'm putting 9 guys in the box, 8-9 guys in the box, and saying, Tristan, you beat us, more power to you. And I think right. Oregon State knows that. Jonathan, said earlier this week, if I was Oregon, I'd be stacking the box, trying to stop Jamar. So with that all being set, the stage is set for me the stage is set from, in my perspective of, okay, early and often, there's going to be a real chance in the play action passing game. Sure. But you're going to have to get it out unbelievably quick, because if there's one thing I do know about Oregon, not only are they going to try and, jam up the passing game or jam up the rushing game with Jamar Jefferson, because they got some great linebackers, great size on that defensive line. Then I think they'll be able to put pressure on Gebbia. And if they can put pressure on Gebbia, that really takes away the effectiveness of that play action. But, we saw a small glimpse this last weekend when Gebbia was able to fake it to Jamar and run on the bootleg and have a wide open. I can't remember if it was Luke Musgrave in the flat or Quatoriano in the flat or maybe even Zariah Beeson. But just, that kind of real cross pattern and, getting those crosses on play action, letting those receivers work in space is something I don't think the Beavers have done a good enough job of yet, because Oregon State's got a ton of speed at receiver. We've seen that. We've documented. We've talked about it. And we haven't really seen, a ton of those jet sweeps, a ton of the real just kind of like drag routes, get Trayvon Bradford in space, right? Get Champ Flemings in space. And I think that could be the equalizer against Oregon's defense potentially.
I'm sure they're going to throw some things at them that we haven't seen yet. And, like we said early on this season, before the season even started, it's all going to be a confidence thing. So like you said, if you can get some of those things rolling and establish, the run and open up that play action, then you're going to be – I mean, the run's already established, truly, coming into this game. They know that JJ's a guy that can hurt you. So they're like you said, they're going to be keying on him, which is going to provide an opportunity. So it's going to be very important to capitalize on that. And if not, then, they're going to have to figure something else out. And that's right. Why it works from there. I'll leave that to them, whatever else they do.
Oh, Jared, come on, man. You tell me you and I couldn't get into Valley Football Center and come up with some game plans? I don't know. We might have to. Can't you be game plan coach for a day? You know, all those things growing up. You'd be like blank for a day. Be head coach for a day. Offensive coordinator for a day, right? No, but all joking aside, I think that's an interesting point. And I think back this last weekend, UCLA found a lot of success against Oregon offensively by doing a bunch of different rushing attacks. One thing we know about Chip Kelly, he knows how to run the ball. He knows how to scheme up running plays and really know how to take advantage of opposing defenses. And Jonathan Smith, gave kudos to Chip Kelly in his press conference sort of this week, saying, they really were able to, make Oregon uncomfortable by running some really unique things and finding success. But he was able to stop and say, the way we run with Jamar, excuse me, there got a tongue twister, is a lot different than how UCLA runs their spread system. So that's where, one might think, oh, Oregon got ran on by UCLA last week. Oregon State should be able to run on them. Not quite that simple and cut and dry. And that's where I'm thinking, as far as the balance is going to go, Jebby is going to have no turnover. This is a game where he's going to have to be if he's not ready to shed that label yet, he's going to have to be the best game manager that Oregon State's had at the quarterback position in a long time. Because I never considered Jake Luton to be a game manager. So as far as that goes, I think if they can establish or try to establish a run game and mix in some unique things, and like you said, I'm sure there'll be some surprises. There always are on rivalry games, one way or another. Might even see some Jack Coletto. Who knows, what they'll run out with. But in either case, I think that's going to be an interesting thing, because if you can keep Oregon's offense off the field, that's your best chance of victory. So let's go ahead and flip to that other side, and that is Oregon's offense against Oregon State's defense. And Beaver fans will certainly roll their eyes, because it's been pretty lopsided on this side of this matchup between these two teams the last couple seasons. I think last year was a step in the right direction, but you go back to 18, 17, Oregon was able to really have their way with this crop of coaches, the Cristobal drawing a blank on the word, but that kind of influence started back with Willie Taggart, obviously that real physical running game, and graduated some of their great running backs. Now they're over to, still have CJ Verdell. And CJ Verdell's had some moments against Oregon State in, the last two Civil Wars. And Jared, Oregon State's run defense, realistically, probably still one or two recruiting classes away from being, where you and I think, okay, they can probably go toe-to-toe with, the other teams in the conference. And, I think we've seen that. Washington State was able to find success. Washington was able to find a lot of success. Cal a little bit more of a different breakdown, but we saw some things against Cal defensively that gave me hope, but this is still Oregon, and they boast an incredible offense, great offensive linemen, even though they're breaking in 5 new guys. That's the way it is at Oregon. You're able just to kind of reload as opposed to rebuild. And Tyler Shuck, obviously at quarterback, done some nice things for him too. Oregon State's defense, I think Oregon State's defense would have to win them this game. And, you look last week, the defense won that game against Cal. You look at Achille Arnold and John McCartan able to, force a turnover late in the game. Defense won that game. And with how Jebbia kind of played like this, you call that a win because, your defense is able to bail you out. As far as this week, I think Oregon State would need to, handle Oregon in a similar fashion that they did last year, not let a bunch of points scored, not let a lot of explosive plays be gone. And I think that was something they did great last year compared to, say, maybe the first year in the Smith era or the last year of the Anderson Hall era. But, yeah, I think it's quite simply the exact case as Oregon State. If I'm Oregon State, you got to try to stop that running game and force a young quarterback to beat you.
No, I do agree as far as the defense winning the game goes. Oregon's not really a team that you want to get into a shootout with. Right. And last season,
what do I think
with Jake, they may be able to. Say it again?
Oh, sorry. I said, nor do I think the Beavers right now have the horses to win in a shootout type of a game. But
Sure.
please.
And last week, or last year with Jake, if had he played, I think they were capable. And you saw them do that multiple times. It seems like, Washington State obviously comes to mind before any of the other games, but there was a lot of shootouts last year. The offense was a lot more high powered, and that was just a product of having Hodgins, having Jake, having both Artavis Pierce and Jamar Jefferson back there.
A couple of offensive linemen that are in the NFL right now. Yep.
Exactly. So, they just lost a lot. And so, like you said, the defense is really going to need to step up. They haven't quite lived up to the expectation that was set for them this year. So similarly to the rest of the team, really, this is a game that is time to turn it on, because not only are you running out of time just in a short season, but it's Oregon. You want to beat Oregon, so it's everybody. And I trust everybody's going to go out there and put their best effort on the line, but it's all got to come together. And defense is going to have to make some plays as well as the offense. So it goes both ways for sure.
Yeah, and tossing a third element. We saw against Cal this last weekend, special teams can have quite the impact as well, both positive and negative. You look at what Josiah Irish was able to do, blocking that punt and basically keeping the Beavers in it. And then on the flip side of that, if it hadn't been for 2 holding penalties, Oregon State would have allowed Nico Remigio to have 2 return touchdowns, one on the kickoff return, one on a punt return. So very important aspect not to forget as well on special teams. But, just Jared, what are some final thoughts from you kind of heading into this game? I think for me, more than anything, it's just I think this has the potential to be a decent game between 2 teams that, want it. And I think more than anything, it'll be, I've heard on both sides, both teams are just so happy to play this game, right? You look at the Apple Cup. Washington State, Washington, not going to happen, right? Maybe down the line, maybe it works out and who knows, but, knock on, some proverbial wood that I have here in my room, Oregon State's going to be lucky enough to still play this game and still play their rivalry game and not have, a year in the record books where it was just omitted, right? And I think that's going to bring a real care factor from both sides that really just want this game because, we don't, you don't know what things are going to be like 3 weeks from now. We don't know what things are going to be like 4 weeks from now. And right now, I think both these teams are looking at this as like, this is our bowl game. We don't know what's going to even happen with bowl games. We know the playoff is probably going to commence, but bowl games are still kind of teetering. You don't know exactly how it's all going to shake out. So I expect both teams to want this game. And I really do expect a similar game to last year where it's nip and tuck. And potentially it could come down to the last possession. Will that happen? Maybe not. I currently think it's going to be about a 10-point swing. Either way, right now, I got Oregon favored a little bit. I think they are the stronger team, but it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen.
Yeah, no, I follow the same thought process. It's a big game, and like you said, it's just awesome that it's still able to be played. So many rivalries around the country that have 75-plus year streaks that are coming to an end this year, which is just
sad.
Not fun. So although it's not happening at the end of the year, although it's not the 12th game of the year, it's still happening, which, like you said, it's going to bring some of that care factor to the table. And I don't think for fans and maybe not even for the players, it's really going to hit them until they get out there on that field and they're like, that's Oregon on the other side of that football field. For Oregon, that's Oregon State over there. This is what used to be the Civil War. This is a rivalry. This is a rivalry football game. It's time to go. So you're going to see a bunch of passion out there. And again, I do follow that same process. I think it'll be a similar game to last season. I think it's huge that Oregon State got a win last week.
Yes, huge.
Much needed confidence coming into this. And I think they trust their ability to win this game. So they just got to put the pieces together to do so.
Yeah, and definitely make sure to, check back late this week, all before as Jared and I will have, our predictions up and a bunch of other content, make sure to, take some breaks between that turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce. Log on beaversedge.com, get your little fix. Then you can go back to the fam or whatever it is. But, just to kind of wrap this up, Jared, and kind of put a bow on everything, let's talk a little recruiting, as we kind of set the stage for the Oregon State-Oregon matchup. This is we've talked about. This is going to be a quiet recruiting cycle for the Beavers in terms of number of guys, right? We think they've used their spots well as far as every guy that's coming in is a really, really impactful player. But they're still going to maybe potentially look to add 2, maybe 3 more pieces. That signing period coming up in December 16th, we believe. 16th, is that correct?
16th.
Yeah, so we have early signing period coming up, and the second will obviously be later than that. But just what are you looking forward to seeing just in about the next month, as it's really kind of go time now, less than a month until that next signing day?
Yeah, no, it's exciting for me because it's been some time since Oregon State got their last commitment from Jimmy Galson. So I'm able to be on commit watch again. The time's coming for some of these players. And, I know that as far as I know, Rollins, who's one of the top targets, Marcus Embo, who's another top target, CJ Baskerville, those guys are planning on signing early as of the last time we spoke. So, like I said, commit watch again. That's exciting for all parties involved, not just me. Obviously, Oregon State fans can get excited for that too. There's a chance that there's some really talented kids who will continue to join this class. It may seem underwhelming simply because it is 8 people right now, which is a lot less than you're used to. A lot less, like half the size than you're used to. But like Brenden said, these players are really good players, and I don't want the size of the class to overshadow the talent that's in it, because there's some really great players in there, and there's a chance to add a couple more. Another thing I'm interested in watching for that we kind of touched on is this kind of the last few targets that they're going to have, or last year we saw when they added Ty Morano, are they going to wait, see who doesn't put the pen to paper, and see who's still out there for the late period, and maybe target a couple there? That's something that, as of now, there's no indicators that that's going to happen, but certainly a possibility.
Anything's possible in 2020, Jared. Let's just throw that out there, right?
Technically be 2021, so hopefully we won't get any curveballs. But last year,
I'm ready to turn that page too.
Last year, I think you kind of had a feeling that it was going to happen because they were still targeting Jake Garcia and a couple guys on the OL. So you kind of knew they were going to target someone in the late period. This year, I don't get that vibe as much, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, just simply because of the numbers. But again, some great players in this class. I'm looking forward to seeing all their dreams turn into a reality come next month. It's always a super fun time for them. And, we have some really cool pieces on the side as well, just superlatives and kind of breaking down everybody's journey to Oregon State. We'll break down people that we think flew under the radar, people that we think could potentially make an instant impact. There'll be no shortage of content. So we definitely encourage you to come check it out.
Certainly, and that's the thing is, just because this is a 6-game football season doesn't mean that, coverage is going to stop. If anything, it's only going to get better from here, folks. And, while you might be a little sad, there's only 3 Oregon State football, 3 or 4, depending on what happens with that weird week 7. I know I keep saying it over and over again. I wish they'd just tell us what's going to happen that last week. But nevertheless, exciting times. And then, Wayne Tinkle, Scott Rulick's basketball teams getting ready to go, right? They're going to potentially play a game this week. We'll see how all that shakes out. But and then even baseball coming on the horizon, signing day, all that stuff. So make sure to keep it locked, beaversedge.com. Most importantly, for the Oregon State content this week, coming from Jared, myself, and then beyond this week, we're going to continue to cover Oregon State's last football game. Signing day will be a big point of emphasis for us as well. So we're really, really looking forward to that. And that'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Edge podcast. Jared, appreciate you jumping on with me as always. Have a great holiday, my friend, and we will be ready to talk a little Oregon State following the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody listening, hope you have a great holiday as well. If you can, enjoy some time with your family. And hopefully it'll be a great week for everybody.
Again, that'll do it on this edition of the Edge podcast. Big shout out to Jared Halus for joining us here. Check back to beaversedge.com throughout the week, as we'll have loaded coverage of Oregon State, Oregon, and then start to move into hoops and even more stuff. So keep it locked, beaversedge.com. Thanks for listening.